Hey, good afternoon. My name is Manjul Sahay. I'm one of the lead product managers for Google Cloud Storage, and will share more with you about generating storage insights with Gemini. So this again kind of fits in the Gemini Cloud Assist portfolio, which you heard from Bobby, but basically in the context of storage and talk more about it. So I think I'm sure you all are familiar, and a little bit Bobby also touched about it. Usually for many customers, cloud storage, which is our object storage service, is a is at the core of their applications, lots of applications, because easy to use, pay as you go, and almost infinitely scaled. So it's kind of at the core of these applications. And they always have to manage around security compliance, cost aspects, and also operational issues in the storage context. Now, if you're wondering like why storage is so special, because more or less the same thing apply in many services, I think what sets storage apart is the scale. If you look at some of our large customers, they have billions of objects, billions, and they are spread across thousands of buckets, tens of projects. And usually, storage is being used by hundreds of different developer teams. Maybe someone is doing an analytics project, maybe someone is doing something with GK. And all this is managed by a couple of administrators who want to ensure security compliance is met, costs are under control, and operational efficiency is there. That's what I think in some ways sets storage apart. And usually the way customers have done this is, let's export all the metadata for these billions of objects into a data warehouse, build data pipeline, maintain it, and then develop automation to act on it. And all this, of course, naturally takes lots of dev effort, and they want to make sure they do all this without having any impact on the actual production apps, which are using the storage for different purpose. So not easy, takes a lot of effort on a continuous basis. So in cloud storage, we have a set of portfolio of features to help customers manage at scale, and essentially arranged in two categories. How do you analyze your storage state? Then, of course, take actions once you know what you want to do. Now, what I want to show today is how we can help customers really do analysis very fast and quickly without having any special expertise. Again, keep in mind, it's at that scale of storage which you talked about, which is millions, billions of objects for very commonly is there for many of the customers. So we introduced at Cloud Next two different features or capabilities. The first one is storage insights datasets, which is essentially a pipeline where we bring in all the object metadata and in a daily snapshot format and have that available in BigQuery, which is our data warehouse offering. So that's the data on top of which we have now done some extra work and applied the magic of Gemini to help customers generate insights with Gemini. And I'll show this in the demo to you. But essentially, users, administrators, they can go type in natural language questions and get answers. There's no need to know about SQL. There's no need to build data pipelines. All of you can do that in simple language as you are kind of inquiring. You don't have to wait on an analyst or maybe an administrator to run some of these analysis for you. We provide verified answers for common questions, which we have heard across customers, so that you are pretty comfortable about the accuracy. And again, I'll show in the demo how we have done some of that. And then if customers want to do certain specific deep dive analysis, they can always do that with multi-turn Q&A chat, and then easily use graphs and chart to communicate this with their end users. So this is the capability, generate storage insights with Gemini, which I'll show you next, and offers some of these.
So are you doing, it's only metadata, so you're not actually looking at the data in the objects, you're not doing data leak prevention or anything like that?
No, we're not looking into the data at all. This one is all about object metadata, which is how do you manage storage better.
And you're effectively you're doing an embedding of all the object metadata into a database, contact database for Gemini?
Embeddings is a kind of part of the game, the whole architecture. But again, think like this is at the scale of millions, billions of objects. So how do you do effectively? Literally, we can't have embeddings beyond a certain scale. So there's some lot of secret sauce magic we have done to kind of make sure it works. The big thing is the scale here. How do you do it at that scale and still do it effectively? Okay, so this is the Google Cloud Storage console, and in the storage menu, cloud storage, which is our object storage service. Essentially, you have 3-4 different menu items. The one which is interest to us is storage insights. This is where the starting point for these analysis. Now, let me first show you very briefly how we set it up. So initially you set up that insight dataset, which we talked about. So as always, give it a name. And then what is a list of projects? So Google Cloud Project is where all the resources kind of sit in across the different services. And you could say all your projects, give it as a list and say anytime you have new buckets added, created, keep on automatically adding them. This is very important because for many customers, they have programs as part of analytics or the workloads which automatically create new buckets, delete buckets, objects. So you want it to be all easily managed and not have to do it manually every time. So once that is done, what's the data retention period, how long you want to do it, where you want the data, of course, give the right permissions, and then enable insight generation with AI. So this is the broad three-step journey to set it up. Again, as I was sharing, this collects data across all the projects, which usually for many customers is very interesting and important because you don't want to go across maybe, I know for a customer who had maybe like thousands of projects for different, let's say, each different team or unit area. You want to do this analysis centrally and not kind of going to one by one. So once that is done, let's select the right data set. And what you see, which is emerging here, is this automatically generated AI-based summary. Now, just to share with you, it says what's the size of storage across these projects. Keep in mind, the size of the storage is not something which is set somewhere. It's a pay-as-you-go service. Every object has a size. You sum up all these sizes across bucket, you sum up it across projects, and that's how you want the sizes. And this is based on the snapshot whenever it was last taken. 24 hours later, very likely it will be a different number. So we generate all this for the customer. Again, this is a starting version of what we have. There's some other very interesting ideas we have about what we can bring to the customer. So some of this is auto-generated, and then there are a set of pre-curated prompts which we have created. Again, very similar to, I think, what Bobby showed in the Gemini Cloud Assist category, usage and savings, security and compliance, and data discovery. Now you will note here that we have put this kind of a label to say highest accuracy. Now these are pre-curated prompts. So there will not be any hallucination here. The answers would be accurate and exact based on the data which is available. And we use these visual indicators to tell to customers like this is a great way to kind of get started with your journey. So you have a couple of usage, you have security compliance. For example, one very interesting thing in storage context is you don't want any of your objects bucket to be open to public internet unintentionally. There have been, very interesting security incidents about that. Great easy way, go like this and it will show up if any of your buckets meet that criteria. Sometimes for a great reason, you are using it for content serving or something, so you want it to be available. If not, you can do that. Or you do data discovery. Many times customers are worried they may have orphan jobs or some other application which left test temp jobs. Maybe users came and created it. And all this adds up to cost, right? Storage is one thing where you'll have, stuff keep getting added. And if you don't know what is being added, soon the bill will shoot up. So again, very easy query, click and get started. So the scenario I'll show you is, let's say a customer wants to make sure that the compute and storage are co-located. It's a very common customer scenario. If your compute and storage are not in the same region, leads to a lot of charges, performance is slow, latency is high, all that. So maybe I'll start my journey by figuring out where exactly is my storage. Like if I look at all the buckets and objects, where are they there? So I click on this pre-created prompt, go into that. It takes, of course, a few seconds to come up with, do all the analysis, and comes up with this beautiful graph showing what's the distribution across the region. Now, this is a pre-created prompt. Great. Let's say US Central 1 is where I have a lot of my compute, maybe for this analytics job I want to run. So next, for an AI ML training, I want to use the same data. And what I want to find out, which of this data is outside of US Central 1, and then potentially move it to the same region. So let me write, in fact, now a custom query. And this I'm typing as I showed to here. So which buckets have objects with JPEG in name? So I'm gonna search for image file and located outside of US Central 1 region. So as you can see, two different conditions. Hopefully I typed it right, which buckets of objects with JPEG in name and located outside of US Central 1 region. Then you basically run the query again.
Do you have to exact match on like the regions, or can it understand US space Central space 1?
It will do. US Central 1 should work, yes. In fact, sometimes we have seen even with spelling mistakes and all that, LLMs are pretty intelligent to kind of make it, unless it's very different and exotic, where sometimes it throws errors, but otherwise it just works fine.
So between this and
Yeah.
Code Assist, is there an option if I wanted to move data from one region to another one, find where that data is referenced in code?
You're saying to figure out what the data is being used by various different applications? I don't think that's exactly Code Assist, but we have some other higher level services which show you the mapping, like this data is being used by which other applications. That would be the way to go. So in this case, it showed up, came to me with an answer, all the bucket names. And here's the interesting part. For every query, again, to give confidence to the user that it's running well, we show the actual SQL query which they can execute on their own on BigQuery. So in this case, if I want, I can just scroll down and see. Okay, so it's looking for all buckets which are not in US Central 1. It's also looking very smartly at NAM4. So Google Cloud Storage offers a very differentiated feature of dual region and multi-region buckets, where you can have the same bucket replicated data into different regions and you don't need a different name. It's very useful for disaster recovery kind of scenario. So here it's saying, okay, I should not only look for US Central 1, but also some of these buckets which are in this dual region configuration. And of course, look for objects which are, the name matches this. So this is the way it does it. And again, if I want to go ahead and do it in BigQuery, I can click on it, go back into it, and then modify this query, add more conditions. So if it's a power user or analyst, this can be a great starting point, and then you can run your more, let's say, complex queries. If you are a general user, developers who doesn't want to get into all the details, something like this could be a great starting point for you to make sure that for your application, your bucket, security is right, savings wise, you're doing whatever.
So I think I understand. I think what you're saying here, you said something earlier that I want to make sure I understood correctly on your pre-configured queries that you have some your top questions that people ask all the time, and you said they're validated so there's no hallucinations.
Right.
Is that what you said?
I said that. Yeah.
Okay. So why I understand AI hallucinations and all that, but this should not be an LLM generating an answer. This should be pure data analysis. So why would you have a hallucination?
So some of it could be, summarizing the data. If you have 1,000 buckets coming up, we're not going to show and just give you a list of 1,000 names. So we use LLM for doing some of this. But we want to make sure some of the base data there is accurate. So yes, that is a data fetch. But summarization and some of the other stuff is what it is.
So summarizing into natural language.
Like a quick summary. That's
like a quick summary. Okay, that makes more sense.
Exactly.
Okay, now I understand that. That part makes more sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I was saying, we have done a few things on this trust accuracy perspective. I talked about, for example, everywhere indicating what's the data freshness. Usually in storage, data changes very frequently. So make sure that the users know how recent is the data. There's usual, of course, the thumbs up and thumbs down to give feedback. So these are some of the interesting things we have done in the.
Use something like this to add metadata to buckets and things of that nature, or
no? Right now, it's more of kind of a read model, not yet into add or edit. I think generally across Google will, make the jump to edition, but at this point of time, it's more about reading and all that. Yeah. We are looking at some interesting ideas in other fields kind of related to that, but this capability is more about reading and understanding.
So I think one of the big challenges with large environments and large data sets is access control.
Yes.
And there's a vast plethora of options and a vast plethora of people, and the permutation and combinations get into the billions. So what type of, are you collecting all of the permissions metadata and the access metadata?
Yeah, so in this case, what we have done is broadly, of course, the user who is logged in, You look at their permissions, what they can access, what they cannot access. And then this data set, if you see, it comes with a set of permission. If I'm like a central administrator for all of the storage in my organization, I will have the permission for that and I'll do it. If I'm an individual developer with access to only one bucket, the permission should be set up that he only has access to metadata for that bucket. And this will also work for that.
No, I'm asking the other question as a
Yeah.
storage admin who's particularly concerned with, or actually I should say a security person really,
Right.
what I'm really concerned with is 20 developers have done stuff, there's 100 different people accessing I have this huge data set, right?
Yes.
What are the permissions? Can I ask something like, what is
Yes.
Jim allowed to see? Show me the objects or the regions or whatever, and how do I, because I
Yes.
want to rationalize and right size all my permissions and access.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great one. I think between Gemini, Cloud Assist, and storage, that's something we're working to deliver. It's not there right now,
Okay.
but yes. I'm like, based on permissions, making sure no one is accessing what is not right. Those are like very interesting questions for administrators. Or let's say you have backup data coming from on-prem.
Right,
Usually you don't expect anyone to access it.
right.
So those are some very interesting things we can look at. Not yet there, but very much.
So are those access control list kinds of information, are they standard metadata for the object, or are they some sort of hidden metadata, or how's that?
Yeah, I mean, these are visible to end customers or users. So all these are metadata. Some of it could be object level, some of it could be bucket level, because we have features at both levels.
But if you can access and query any metadata that you want, then you should be able to see, user equal Jim and buckets that, have access rights for Jim, right?
Object permissions get a lot more complex. So there could be different kind of read permissions, write permissions.
That's the real problem
Yeah.
here is
It takes,
we've gone in this environment, we've gone way past read, write, execute type permissions where
Yeah.
you can set hundreds of different permissions on per user or per identity on a single object, hundreds to thousands. And so it gets very hard very, very quickly to figure out your true access permissions map. And it's a big security issue from data access.
Just to share, some of this is not related to what I was showing, but if you go to like our buckets page, we do have something which show up like an access permissions and all. Between security and storage, we have done some of these capabilities.
Yep.
And so we have taken some initial steps, but yes, it's not a Gen AI feature per se. Yeah. Great. I think that's what I was planning to show. And now going back to the slide to kind of wrap it up.
Right. So there are a lot of projects out there, products out there that do, data visibility kinds of things. You see this in that type of framework, only for objects specifically?
So this is for management. Yes, absolutely. And part of that is understand how your storage state is distributed, security-wise, like nothing is open to public when it should not be, making sure cost-wise you do it. There's a lot of interesting operational use case. For example, if you want to, let's say, data copy, right? You want to understand what's your prefix distribution so you can do the right parallel transfer.
Oh, yes.
And again, these are actual tasks which administrators do with that. And if you make it easily available to them, it can be done in maybe a couple of hours, which could have taken a couple of days.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of difference.
There are insights you can provide to what's going on in your global, storage landscape. That, I mean, we have to always remember that AI is suggesting and recommending, but that gets you so much farther along in the analysis very quickly.
Yes.
Just don't, I would say still, don't empower it to act.
Not yet, yes.
But it does save a lot of time because these things are so big and complex. Sometimes there are patterns you may miss.
And it works very well at scale. And usually object states are very well, strong, large scale. We have started with object service, but of course, hopefully once it works well enough, we'll take it to other storage properties and other service. And that's all what Gemini Cloud Assist is about. So just to conclude, final piece. I don't need the demo backup video now. Like I shared, what we have heard from customers is great for power users or analysts because this is like solving for the cold start problem. Give me something, I can go from there. While for generic storage users and developers, this may be most likely the ideal way to work with this rather than having to wait for others. And this feature is available in currently experimental private preview and will over the next few months be generally available to customers.